for so long, sucker. Joe Biden. Joe Biden's address, holy cow, Joe Biden's address last night reminded me, I almost forgot how much I didn't like the guy, and then he gave a farewell address, and I was like, oh yeah, that's why we all hate you. That's why nobody in your own party wanted you to run. That's why the United States of America is chasing you out of the White House. Oh yeah. Thanks for the general reminder. Wait a minute. What happened? Where am I? Where's my screen? No. What happened to my camera? There we go. Hi. I don't but that was the weirdest thing ever. Joe Biden, man, wow. I'll tell you what, Joe Biden's farewell address is about what you would expect from somebody as bad at being president as Joe Biden. It was really, I've heard a lot of people say it was despicable. It was horrible. It was dark. It was pessimistic. It was gibber. It's vintage Joe Biden. I mean, all of those things why would we be shocked? Why would we be shocked that at the end of his political career, Joe Biden would be any better than he has been for the last 50 years, and especially the last 4? Joe Biden, in his speech yesterday, he actually said, for one more time for the road, he actually read the direction in the teleprompter when he, once again, one of his favorite quotes, one of the best. In fact, I'll be honest with you. If there's a quote that should be on Joe Biden's tombstone, because a lot of times people put quotes on their tombstone. For example, I believe on Martin Luther King Jr.'s tombstone, it says free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. That could be, I don't know, I haven't seen it in a while, but that's good. I know that on Michael Landon's tombstone, it says, remember me with laughter and smiles, for that is how I shall remember you. I know that one. On Joe Biden's tombstone, it's going to say, end of quote.
His farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote.
End of quote. How many times have we heard Joe Biden read those? I'm going to miss that. Here's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't ever read the directions on the teleprompter because Donald Trump doesn't ever read the teleprompter. He has one, but he usually goes off script pretty quickly. In fact, at the one of the best things about the RNC, and one of the things I kept doing when I was at the RNC in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was when Donald Trump came out for his speech. He's got the stage up there. Boom, Pfizer Center, Pfizer Forum. He's on stage, big stage, delegates everywhere, media everywhere, MAGA conservatives all over them, people jammed in like sardines. We're all chanting USA. We're all very excited. And on the back wall, huge screen, like movie screen size screen on the back wall, is the speech. It's the teleprompter so that Donald Trump or whoever's speaking can see it. You want to be able to know what you're talking about. You can't have you got a big one. So you're standing on stage and you can read off of like a movie theater size screen, the teleprompter. And of course, everyone else that looks at it can also see it. So I would watch Donald Trump on stage and then I would turn around and I would try to see if the two matched up, and they never did. Donald Trump didn't read that thing. That there were speakers there that did. Donald Trump wasn't one of them. And he never, ever, ever, ever read a direction from the teleprompter like end of quote. Or next page, or stop, or something like that. But that's Joe Biden's. It's very fitting that we had one more end of quote to end Joe Biden's term as president, and also his entire political career. That was the best part of the speech. The worst part of the speech was every other part of the speech. And we'll get to that here in just a minute. Real quick, though, I wanted to share this with you because this is really exciting. We did something this morning, and by we, I mean me, did something this morning. Donald Trump's official portrait has been released. This is the new official portrait for Donald Trump's second administration. It's been released just in time for the inauguration. Now, every time there's a president, there's a portrait. Donald Trump's first portrait, you may remember he was kind of smiley. In this one, he's not smiling and he's been through too much. This guy is very different from, hang on, let me try to find Donald Trump's first portrait. This guy is very different from the first Donald Trump. Here it is. This is Donald Trump's first portrait, okay? And then this is Donald Trump's first portrait. This is Donald Trump's current portrait. Okay. First portrait, current portrait. You can tell these are very different guys. The first guy's smiley and bubbly. He's got a lot of brightness. There's a glow about him. He's very excited. It's very bright, long future of saving America in front of him. This guy The new portrait is this is a guy who's older and wiser and more rugged and stronger and has seen some stuff, man. This is a guy. This is a guy who not only has already been president for 4 years, but has been impeached not once, but twice. This is a guy who's been indicted in New York, in Florida, in Washington, D.C., in Georgia, a guy who's been indicted 91 times, a guy who's been sued in civil court over and over again, a guy who's been attacked relentlessly in the media. This is a guy who not only had to spend 4 years plotting his return and beating back all of these adversaries, but this is a guy who had to run a primary campaign against people he thought were his advocates and his allies. He had to beat all of them. Then he had to run against Joe Biden, beat Joe Biden. Then he had to run against Kamala Harris, beat Kamala Harris. And oh yeah, he got shot in the head by a would-be assassin at the time. And then there were other assassination attempts. This is a guy who's lived under the threat of death every single day for almost a decade. That's this guy. This guy was new to town. This guy's been around the block a couple times, and Donald Trump knows now what's up. He knows who his friends are, and he knows who his friends aren't, which is way more important when you're in Washington, D.C. That official portrait has just been released, and we did something this morning because I knew people were going to ask. As soon as one of these things happens, people will go, "You gonna put that on a t-shirt?" And so I beat you to the punch. This morning, we spent all day with the designers at the Mark Kaye Saves the Republic studio, and we were able to put together your Trump official portrait tees of different various kinds and styles and sizes. Per usual, we have the dark MAGA. We also have the light MAGA because I know we have dark MAGA and we have light MAGA people. We have the women's V-neck Trump portrait t-shirt as well, because I know that the Kayetriot women listening in the audience all over the country, they all love their V-necks. And I don't want to, I hate to not. Oh, we have the tote bag. The tote bag. We did these tote bags once a while ago for Kayetriots, and people loved them. We're already sold out of the black ones. I put these on sale today, but we've got the blue and we've got the red. If you're interested in a tote bag to commemorate the presidential inauguration with Donald Trump's official portrait on it, have at it. Hoodies. This is the hoodie I ordered myself, by the way. I always order myself a hoodie. As you can tell, I'm a big hoodie guy. I always order myself a hoodie, and this is the one that I ordered. But you can get them in black and blue and the olive drab green. All various. There's like a burgundy one. All kinds of stuff. Go to markkshop.com and you can. Oh, also, I had a request. I don't want to call anybody. I'm not going to name any names, but I had a request last time we did the shirts. Somebody said, "Hey, I need a 6X," and I was like, "Really?" I was like, "You need a 6X?" He's like, "Yeah, I need a 6X." I go, well, look at this. We found it. We found the 6X. So if you want a small, medium, large, XL, no problem. If you want a 2X, we got you covered. If you want a 3X, absolutely. If you want a 4X, I got it for you. If you want a 5X, we have those too. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 6X for the extra large Kayetriots, for our biggest fans. You can go to markkshop.com and you can get all of those right now. We're very, 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 very excited about that. All right, so let's get back to what's going on. Let's get back to what's up, shall we? Pam Bondi, yesterday at the very end of the show, when I was going through some of the stuff, we listened into the tail end of Pam Bondi's Senate confirmation hearing yesterday, and Pam Bondi said a couple things to Adam Schiff, which were remarkable. And it's one of the reasons why Pam Bondi 100% should be confirmed as the Attorney General, and why I believe 100% she will be confirmed as the Attorney General. But I wanted to play them for you again because it was right at the end of the show, and it bears repeating. Pam Bondi was being questioned by Adam Schiff, who just became a senator like a second ago. Adam Schiff became a senator like a second ago. This is the guy, smarmy Adam Schiff. Now, you may remember, he was also in charge of the impeachment of Donald Trump the first time. And Pam Bondi was a defense attorney for Donald Trump during that first impeachment. So they have a long history with each other. They know each other well. They've done battle before. And Pam Bondi is not impressed with, nor is she scared of, Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is smarmier, by the way, if you can believe it, than he ever has been. And for whatever reason, the people of California keep sending him back to Washington, D.C., probably the same reason they send Mazie Hirono over here from Hawaii, because they just can't deal with her anymore. And he tried to attack Pam Bondi. But of course, she knows him better than probably anyone else. And she was not having it.
Will it be your advice to the president? No, Mr. President, I need to go over them on a case-by-case basis. Do not issue blanket pardons. Will that be your advice to the president?
Senator, I have not looked at any of those files. If confirmed, I will look at the files
and will you be able to do? Will you be able to review hundreds of cases on day one?
I will look at every file I am asked to look at.
Of course you won't. So will you advise the president?
Can I answer the question?
Well, my question
I would have plenty of staff. You said, of course you want.
You'll be able to review hundreds of cases on the first day?
I'm not going to mislead this body nor you.
All right, let me ask another question. You don't want to answer that. Let me ask another question.
You were censured by Congress, Senator, for comments just like this that are so reckless.
Oh, you were censured. Remember that. And I'm glad she brought that up. Congressman, you were censured by, or Senator rather, you were censured by Congress for reckless comments just like this. You were putting words in people's mouths, which is exactly what he was censured for. He was censured because when he read the transcript rather of the phone call between Donald Trump and President Vladimir Zelensky, the phone call that they said was a quid pro quo and Donald Trump was trying to get all this dirt on Joe Biden and he's the worst person ever. When he read the transcript, when he read the whistleblower report, it was nowhere near as bad as he thought. So he extrapolated, he ad-libbed, and he made it sound worse than it was. And he got censured, and now he's in the Senate. He's doing the same thing. He's saying, will you be able to review hundreds of cases on day one? Of course you won't. And she's like, excuse me. The Department of Justice is the largest law firm in the world. We've got attorneys and more attorneys and more attorneys and more attorneys. And we've got legal clerks, and we've got assistants, and it's one of the largest government agencies we have because they need to enforce the laws of the land. And she's like, I could pull 100 attorneys into a room. I could give them each a file folder and say, you've got 1 hour to give me a summary on this pardon. And they could do it. Adam Schiff, however, is showboating and trying to use his divisive and horrific tactics to try to get Pam Bondi to trip herself up. She ain't gonna. She's beaten Adam Schiff before. She will beat him again. I wish a lot more people would beat Adam Schiff. But anyway, then he asked about Liz Cheney, he was very, very obsessed with Liz Cheney.
I'm asking you, sitting here today, whether you are aware of a factual predicate to investigate Liz Cheney.
Senator, no one has asked me to investigate Liz Cheney. That is a hypothetical.
The president has called for it publicly. You are aware of that, aren't you?
No one has asked me to investigate.
But the president
Liz.
has
We're
called,
also worried about Liz Cheney,
Senator. The president has
You know what
called
we
for
should be worried about?
Ms. Bondi, please answer my questions.
California right now
you are
is
aware,
through the roof.
Ms. Bondi,
Your robberies are 87% higher than the national average.
My question is this.
That's what I want to be focused on, Senator.
Do you have the power to say no to the president?
General.
That's what I want to do. I want to help you clean up your mess of a state that you haven't done anything for. Look at this. That you have the politicians from California. Let's just itemize them quickly. You've got Gavin Newsom, you have Nancy Pelosi, you have Kamala Harris, you have Adam Schiff. I mean, there's a ton more that are just equally as bad, but these are people that are not focused on representing the people. That's really the thing. That's really the thing that it comes down to. If you're Adam Schiff, representative from California, you're supposed to represent California. And while he's been representative of California, crime has gone up in California, burglaries have gone up in California, illegal immigration has gone up in California, homelessness has gone up in California. The amount of piles of poop on the street has skyrocketed in California as a result of Adam Schiff's representation. And now he's a senator. Nancy Pelosi's been a representative from San Francisco forever and a day. And how is California better for it? Your senators. I mean, come on. I mean, like, what would you do? Barbara Boxer? Who'd you have? Who's the one that was like 95,000 years old, just passed away? That I forget her name. And then Kamala Harris. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. Pam Bondi's like, you need me in the Attorney General's office so that I can come in and save your hide because the people in California are suffering. He also asked about Jack Smith because Jack Smith, as you know, just quit. He investigated Donald Trump. He was special counsel. And by the way, unconstitutionally appointed special counsel with unconstitutional powers, but that's an argument for another day. And he wants to know, hey, are you going to go after Jack Smith? Because Donald Trump has said Jack Smith should be in jail.
The president has said Jack Smith should go to jail. Will you investigate Jack Smith?
Senator, I haven't seen the file. I haven't seen the investigation. I haven't looked at anything. It would be irresponsible of me to make a commitment regarding anything without, you're a long practicing attorney, without looking at a file.
So you would need a factual predicate to open an investigation of Jack Smith, is that right?
Not a summary by you sitting here. Yes, sir.
And not a summary by the president either, right?
Absolutely.
So a summary by the president or his desire to investigate Jack Smith would not be enough for you to open an investigation of Jack Smith, is that right?
I will look at the facts and evidence in any case.
And sitting here today,
Senator, 72% of Americans
please, I only have
have
7
lost
minutes.
faith in the Department of Justice.
Sitting here today, are you aware of any factual predicate to investigate Jack Smith? Sitting here today, yes or no?
Senator, I will look at the facts and the circumstances.
You can't answer that question.
Brought to me.
You're not a part of the department yet. There's no worry about divulging
I'm sitting
law
here as a
enforcement
nominee.
sensitive information. So just tell us.
Are you aware?
Just tell us. Are you aware of a factual predicate to investigate Jack Smith? Yes or no?
Senator, what I'm hearing on the news is
Are you aware of
horrible.
a?
Do I know if he committed a crime? I have not looked
You seem
at.
reluctant to answer a simple question. Let me ask you a different simple question.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you this. The fact of the matter is, and she's right about it, this is why people don't like Congress. This is why they don't like the Senate. Because Jack Smith, I'll be honest with you, other than Jack Smith and maybe his immediate family, who the hell cares if this guy goes to jail? Send him to jail for all if he committed a crime, send him to jail. If he didn't, don't. Investigate him, get to the bottom of it. We're all innocent until proven guilty. But if there's a factual predicate, as he likes to point out, if there's any kind of evidence, hey, you know what? I think Jack Smith may have committed a crime. All right, let's investigate it. Hey, you know what? We didn't find anything. Great. Let's go about our merry way. Or, oh, you know what? You were right. We found all this dirt on Jack Smith. We should put him on trial and send him to jail because he's a criminal. I mean, that's what the Department of Justice does. But the fact of the matter is, I could count on one hand the number of people that would care if Jack Smith goes to jail. There's a whole bunch of people that care about illegal immigration. There's a whole bunch of people that care about looting. There's a whole bunch, especially in California right now. There's a whole bunch of people that care about whether or not there's corruption in the government. There's a whole bunch of people that care whether or not Joe Biden used his position of power to get millions of dollars from the Chinese government and the Ukrainian government and Moscow and a whole bunch of other stuff through shell corporations that were founded and run by his family members, including but not limited to his son, Hunter Biden. More on that coming up. But these Senate confirmation hearings are going exceptionally well for Donald Trump and his transition team, and exceptionally poorly for the Democrats. They're really doing a bad job. Scott Bessent is on Capitol Hill today, and I'm not going to play you too much of Scott Bessent because he's Treasury, and money's important, but it's kind of boring. But what's his name? Who's the guy from Oregon who talks like Sylvester the cat? Ron Wyden. This guy is the epitome of an Oregon senator. When I think of somebody from Portland, this is exactly, or I'm sorry, when I think of a man from Portland, and no offense if you're a man from Portland, but this is exactly what I think about. Scott Bessent is up there and he's talking and he's at his confirmation hearing. And this guy Wyden, he just makes himself look like an idiot. Well, okay, that's not true. He helps himself look like an idiot by asking a dumb question and then getting schooled by a very intelligent, very thorough, and highly qualified Scott Bessent, who was put in that position by Donald Trump. Listen to this.
I believe these tariffs, you can call it whatever.
I'm sorry. I believe these tariffs suffering succotash. So I apologize. You shouldn't make fun of people who are stupid.
I believe these tariffs, you can call it whatever you want in terms of trying to gussy it up.
Gussy it up.
They're gonna
someone on this guy's staff, please tell him. First of all, gussy is not a word that any man should use. And second of all, enough with the S words, okay? First of all, these tariffs, you can gussy up these tariffs all you want. He's not the guy. S words are not his strong suit. He should have. Anyway, I apologize. This is the third time. I'll let it play this time.
I believe these tariffs, you can call it whatever you want in terms of trying to gussy it up. they're going to be paid for by our workers and small businesses. And all through the campaign, we heard they weren't, that foreign countries were going to pay it. I think that's baloney. It's going to be paid for by workers and small businesses. So, your response.
Yes, Senator, I would respectfully disagree. And the history of tariffs and tariff theory, optimal tariff theory, does not support what you're saying. Traditionally, we see that the current, if we were to say use a number that has been thrown around in the press of 10%, then traditionally the currency appreciates by 4%. So the 10% is not passed through. Then we have various elasticities. Consumer preferences may change. And finally, foreign manufacturers, especially China, which is trying to export their way out of their current economic malaise, they will continue cutting prices to maintain market share.
Okay, now I understood about this much of what Scott Bessent just said, but I'm pretty sure that Senator Wyden understood even less. I mean, come on. This guy, tariffs, or you can gussy it up all you want, but tariffs aren't the answer. Well, actually, let me go through tariff theory with you. When you look at tariffs and the percentages and the difference in consumer advocacy and the predicates of, I'm like, clearly this guy knows what he's talking about. And if he doesn't, he's definitely making it seem like he does. And that's what happens over and over and over again with these Donald Trump appointees. Scott Bessent is going to sail through for Treasury. I've been watching Doug Burgum, who's going to sail through for Interior. Marco Rubio had Democrats yesterday praising him. I watched Tammy Duckworth tell a story about how Marco Rubio tried to help her pass a rule allowing her to bring her infant on the floor so she could vote and breastfeed at the same time. I don't think she used the word breastfeed, but I think that's what she meant. And she was like, and she's a Democrat. She's about as Democrat as they come. And all she did, she used her 7 minutes to talk about what a great guy Marco Rubio was. Tim Kaine, same thing. Tim Kaine is the idiot who started bringing up, he's the guy that, started to accuse and bring up these terrible things about, what's his name? Pete Hegseth and his wife and his daughter, which I thought was totally out of line. And yesterday, all he could say was Marco Rubio's great, and Marco Rubio cares about the Americas, and Marco Rubio's fought side by side with me, and I love Marco Rubio. I mean, it was wild. But all these appointments they're just sailing through. Lee Zeldin from New York. The most exciting moment in Lee Zeldin's EPA Senate confirmation hearing was when Bernie Sanders' phone rang. And in true Bernie Sanders fashion, it sounded like a phone from 1932.
And account for every dollar that's being spent by the EPA. So I know that this is an important priority of you and solar power.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Almost saved by the bell. That was the fossil fuel industry.
I look forward to working with you on the center.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, Bernie Sanders got jokes. He's 82 years old. I still got jokes. I didn't silence my cell phone. Come on, silence your cell phones. Get with it. I mean, he's the one questioning. I wonder if somebody was calling him because they heard him. They're like, hey, listen, I'm calling you because you got to shut up because Lee Zeldin's handed it to you right now. I know it doesn't matter. But that was the most exciting. These are turning out to be, with the exception of Pete Hegseth. And Pam Bondi's, I'll be honest with you, was kind of interesting. But with the exception of those, they're very cut and dry. And it just seems like a big waste of everyone's time because each and every one of these people is uniquely qualified. And not just uniquely qualified, but overqualified for the jobs that they are being given. Speaking of jobs that people are being given, before we get to Joe Biden and his terrible, horrible, no good, very bad farewell address, the one where we all looked at him and said, God, you really are terrible. Fun fact, Joe Biden had a bad approval rating going into his farewell address. And after his farewell address, it got even worse. Because people are like, God, I didn't think I could like him less, but now I can. He should probably keep his mouth shut. But speaking of new jobs, there's a new senator, and Marco Rubio, as you know, he's going to be the Secretary of State. And that leaves a big gaping hole in the Senate. There's a big opening for a Republican. And Ron DeSantis' job was to fill that hole. Well, today we found out he filled that hole with Attorney General of the state of Florida, Ashley Moody. raise your hand if you're at all shocked by this. I knew it was going to be Ashley Moody as soon as Marco Rubio got picked for Secretary of State. Ashley Moody has been a friend and a fan and a coworker and a confidant of Ron DeSantis since day one. Ashley Moody is the Attorney General for the state of Florida. Ashley Moody just seemed like the kind of person that Ron DeSantis would choose, and Ashley Moody, lo and behold, was chosen.
A lot of deadlock in Washington. And then I thought more about that. And I thought, if every person with the same energy, the same love, the respect for our founding principles, the ideals on which this country was built on, if every person like that with that personality said, I don't think I'd like serving in Congress, then we'd never change that culture. And so you're probably right. I probably won't like it. But I'm ready to show up and fight for this nation and fight for President Trump to deliver the American First agenda on day one.
By the way, let me pause right there because I was thinking about that when she said that. I was thinking about all that. I was like, how could you not like that? I'm excited to serve in the Congress of the United States of America. I'm excited to go in there and fight for the people of Florida's 5th District. I'm excited for chaos. I love chaos. I thrive in chaos. I'm the guy that when I would go to a meeting, which I hated to do, by the way, but when I went to a meeting, just to liven it up, I would say something that I knew would cause an argument or extend the meeting, or I'd throw out there some kind of idea and or I'd question people and ask them, get them to try to defend their ideas. I always went to meetings more for entertainment. So if it's chaotic and there's stonewalling and if there's, it just seems hopeless and tireless, and that's my kind of environment. I love that. I'm not a calm person, and I don't really thrive. I don't really do well in a calm environment. I like deadlines, and I like pushing things to the limit, and I like seeing how much I can get away with. That's what I think makes for a good. That's what I think makes for a good congressperson. But anyway, Ashley Moody, I think she'll be fine.
What has angered me the most as Attorney General, as I've had to fight the Biden administration over the last 4 years, when we have seen policy after rule, after financial decisions, spending out of these agencies, as the agencies have gotten bigger, as they have taken more power, as they have tried to tell the states what to do more and more and more, all that does is take the will of the people, the want of the people through their elected representatives in Congress, and turns this into a country we don't even recognize anymore. And whether it's agencies making these decisions when lawmakers should, unelected bureaucrats, or whether it's international organizations making decisions that our lawmakers should, we cannot stand for that. The only way to return this country to the people who govern it, is to make sure we have a strong Congress doing its job, passing
law. I think, got cut off. But she'll be fine. She'll be good. She'll go to Florida. She'll vote probably the way that we need her to vote. And she'll be a solid representative, at least in line with what Marco Rubio was. Now, the interesting thing about this is that she only gets 2 years and then she's got to run again. Because when Marco Rubio has 4 years left on his term. That's how this thing works. Marco Rubio, because he left or is going to leave and become Secretary of State, that there's a 2-year window that Ashley Moody gets to fill by appointment. But then at the next election cycle, which is in 2026, she'll have to rerun to maintain that seat. And we already know that Corey Mills has decided he's going to run for Senate too. So she's not guaranteed to have a 6-year term. In fact, after that 2 years, if she wins in 2026, she'll then have to run again 2 years later, because that will be the end of Marco Rubio's actual term. And then she'll have to run for her first full 6-year term. So for the next 6 years, it's going to be like running for Congress. You get appointed for 2 years, then you got to run for 2 more years, then you got to run again for 6 years. It's going to be a constant state of campaigning. And there's going to be other people who can come in if they wanted, and they can try to take that position away from her in the next election and the next election after that. However, being the appointed choice by Ron DeSantis, that does put her at a distinct advantage over anyone who at this point would probably have to then primary her in 2026. There's another announcement that we saw teased about Florida, and that has to do with Ron DeSantis' job himself. Ron DeSantis is term limited out. Governor DeSantis is going to be out of office in 2026. He cannot run for a third term. That's it. He's done his 8 years. He did a great job. We appreciate it. And then he's going to go and plot his return, I guess, to national politics. I guess he's going to start beginning his next presidential run, taking all the lessons he learned from the first run and, putting them into a second, better, bigger, more improved run, which means there's a big vacancy for the governor. And we've heard rumblings. We heard rumblings that Ashley Moody might want to do it, but apparently she's got other ideas. We heard rumblings that Matt Gaetz might step back from his new job at OAN and run for governor, because why wouldn't he? He's a very popular politician here in the state of Florida, very popular in the Tallahassee area. He was a congressman for several years, almost attorney general, and he's, could do a great job as Florida's governor. But a new name has emerged, Byron Donalds. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, his name now emerging not just as a leader of the Republican Party, but as a potential pick for governor of Florida in 2026. Byron Donalds, he's from down south of here on the West Coast, and he is a top Trump advocate and ally. He's campaigned for Donald Trump. He's been a staunch supporter of Donald Trump. He's part of the Freedom Caucus. He is a guy that could definitely woo a lot of people and win a lot of votes and potentially be the next governor of the state of Florida for 8 years. And then after that, who knows? Who knows? But Byron Donalds and a lot of going on here in Florida on a national landscape. So we have a brand new senator. We may have somebody who's shown interest. This is all, of course, conjecture. He hasn't made any public announcements. He's just been telling people privately that he's contemplating a run for governor. Much like I haven't made any public announcements either. I'm just telling you privately, just between you and me, I'm contemplating a run for Congress in 2026. So that's what's been going on. Like I said, it's been a very, very, very busy day here in Florida as far as politics go with national implications. Now, Joe Biden, let's get to Joe Biden because I've gone on long enough. Joe Biden, this guy, I got to tell you. Oh, before we get to Joe Biden, well, you know what? No, I'll tell you about Joe Biden first. Joe Biden yesterday, he comes out and he gives this speech and he reads the prompter announcements again, or the prompter directions again.
His farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote.
End of quote. End of presidency is what I would have written in there if I went. But look, he started his speech by going over some things he claims he accomplished, which he did not. And he ended his speech by talking about all of the dark things that lay ahead. And the irony, once again, is all of the dark things that he said lay ahead are actually things that he himself has already put into place. He's very, very concerned about the oligarchy that's being set up. He's very concerned about rich people running the country. Which is weird because Joe Biden, last time I checked, is rich. Nancy Pelosi, also rich. His good buddy Barack Hussein Obama, or former good buddy, rich. Or at least he will be until his wife divorces him. And then he'll be half as rich as he is now. The Clintons, filthy rich. It's amazing how the oligarchy, when it's Democrat, is totally fine. Mark Zuckerberg was a Democrat for 8 years during Joe Biden's administration, during the Barack. It was fine when the Democrats are given $400 million by these tech oligarchs. That's no problem. But as soon as Elon Musk switches sides and supports Donald Trump, as soon as Mark Zuckerberg switches sides and says, you know what, I was wrong to censor all those Americans and their freedom of speech. As soon as that happens, oligarchies now are bad. And we need to, in fact, the tech sector, which Joe Biden and the Democrats have been so cozy with since its inception, is now something that worries Joe Biden in the future.
6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's a lot to, I took notes. There's a lot to unpack here. Joe Biden is saying that the truth is being smothered by lies for profit and power. This is a guy whose own White House, whose own communications department, whose own cadre of security personnel and friends on the inside lied repeatedly, attacked, threatened, blackmailed, cajoled, coerced, whatever they did, social media companies and newspapers and everyone else to suppress an actual factual story about his own son's laptop and the emails and the photographs and all of the evidence that was on that hard drive. This is a guy that did everything in his power, and some things that weren't even in his power and probably were illegal. This is a guy that did all of that to suppress the truth, to smother the truth, as he said. And now he's saying the truth is being smothered. Disinformation and misinformation is a worry of Joe Biden's. Why? Why now? You were spreading disinformation, misinformation for years. There was misinformation about Donald Trump. There was misinformation about his call with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. There was misinformation about Donald Trump's businesses. There was misinformation about his sexual past. There was misinformation about everything. Hunter Biden's laptop was heralded as Russian disinformation when it wasn't. It was American information. And you got 51 former spooks and spies and intelligence officers to lie about it on your behalf in public. They wrote a letter. They published it in the paper. They all looked like idiots when we all found out that it was actually true. We heard from Mark Zuckerberg himself. Mark Zuckerberg said Joe Biden's people would call us on the phone, yelling at us, screaming at us, to censor information, to take down people's posts, to put people in timeout. We heard the Twitter files. In the Twitter files, we have actual examples of tweets and tweeters that Joe Biden and his administration didn't like. And Jen Psaki in the communications department, they would send him a list every day and say, delete, 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 suppress, block. Oh, they kick these people right off your platform. That was the disinformation and the misinformation. Now, all of a sudden, that Joe Biden's out of power and Donald Trump's in power and Mark Zuckerberg is not going to fact check people anymore and Elon Musk owns X. Now he's concerned about disinformation and misinformation. Social media has given up fact checking. Fun fact, it was never fact checking to begin with. It was opinion checking. It was opinion checking. They would go in, they would read a post, they'd say, my opinion is that's not right. And then they would list it as false, list it as misinformation, delete the post, cover it up with a blurry, this post is labeled misinformation. If you still want to see it, click here. All that crap. Demonetize me. You know how much money Joe Biden and his band of fact checkers or opinion checkers has cost me over the years? I don't, but it's a lot. It is just ridiculous to hear this guy. This is a guy who, and again, it's not like we're stupid anymore. We know we know. Joe Biden's sitting there and he's saying the most ridiculous things. It'd be like if I slapped somebody and then called the cops and said they slapped me. That's exactly what Joe Biden's doing here. He's saying we're worried about the tech oligarchs taking over, suppressing the truth, all for power and profit. How much truth has Joe Biden suppressed for profit? How much truth has Joe Biden suppressed for profit? In fact, how much has Joe Biden made because he suppressed the truth for power and profit? Kevin O'Leary, who's Canadian, but is one of the richest people in America. Kevin O'Leary was on CNN and he asked that question. He goes, does anyone know how Joe Biden got rich? Can anyone tell me how did Joe Biden's attacking rich people? He's afraid of these tech oligarchs. He doesn't like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, hanging out with Donald Trump, a billionaire. He doesn't like all these other millionaires going to Washington, D.C. to tell us how we should do things and how we can make America better. How did Joe Biden get rich?
To make sure that the people at the top don't abuse the people at the bottom. And our system in Washington is broken.
That's fair. It's all fair. But half the country's still wondering how Joe Biden got rich.
Yeah. Okay. So here.
How did he get rich?
But if Joe Biden got rich,
how did he get rich? Does anybody understand how that happened?
I actually think that, Kevin, your question about Joe Biden's legacy and how he will be seen is actually extremely important because I think it's not just Republicans who are asking the question, is Joe Biden going to be looked back on fondly? Democrats are too.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to be looking back fondly on Joe Biden at all. Except maybe China. Xi Jinping's going to be like, oh, I miss Joe Biden so much. That's going to be his legacy. That the Chinese and the Russians and the North Koreans and the Iranians and Hamas and Hezbollah, they're all going to look back fondly on Joe Biden's 4 years in the White House. You know who won't? Americans, Israelis, anyone else who loves freedom and cheap gas. Although that's going to be, everyone else is going to be like, yeah, thank God that guy's gone. Joe Biden. What's his brand going to look? That's what Kevin O'Leary wants to know. Look, this guy pardoned his own son. What does that do? He's tarnished his legacy forever.
And I think that's going to be the case. How do you think history's going to treat his foreign policy, his Bidenomics? How do you think he's going to be treated? Pardoning his son, the Biden brand name. Do you think a single Biden can get on the board of the Smithsonian?
I don't think you can argue against pardoning the son when you supported a felon. You see, that to me, you lose the moral authority there.
How do you feel about the Biden brand? How did he help his family? It's worse than Nixon for him.
You're going to talk to me about helping the family when Jared Kushner got $2 billion from the Saudis?
Yeah.
So by the way, seeing Anna Navarro, seeing two reality show TV hosts battle it out on CNN says a lot about CNN. But that's the fact of the matter. Joe Biden has tarnished his legacy in so many ways. And then he went on TV yesterday and he made this speech which tarnished it even more. He talked about holding social media accountable, for crying out loud.
We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy.
We've got to protect our children and our families from social media. This is a guy, once again, who used social media as a weapon, weaponized it against his political adversaries, weaponized it. He talks about the media being, what was it he said? He said the media is in tatters, or the media is torn apart. That's his doing. He's the one that used the media as his own private platform, and in doing so destroyed all of their credibility. And then he said something which I think was really rich. Then he started talking about the Supreme Court, because, when the Supreme Court makes decisions that Democrats don't like dialing back Roe v. Wade or presidential immunity or anything else like that, they start yelling and screaming about how the Constitution is wrong and that these judges need to be term limited.
We need to get dark money. That's that hidden funding behind too many campaigns contributions. We need to get it out of our politics.
Okay, wait a minute. Before he gets to the Supreme Court, we gotta comment about the dark money. Dark money in politics is when people who want to control politicians write big fat checks, like big, huge checks. And they do it on a grand scale. And they do it not just for one politician, but for several. Why? Because they know that in order to truly control the political landscape of a country, you've got to have politicians at every level of government. Presidents, senators, congresspeople, governors, attorneys general. That's the really important one. Judges, you've got to make sure that you're controlling all of the strings. So it takes a lot of money, takes a lot of influence, a lot of money and a lot of influence, like a billionaire would have, someone like George Soros. And George Soros has been one of the biggest, in my humble opinion, probably the worst dark money puppeteer in the history of this country. And a lot of these terrible policies that we start seeing in California and in some of the Pacific West Coast states, the Pacific Northwest rather, all these policies that are ripping apart these blue states, these sanctuary cities, places like Chicago and New York, all of the judges and the attorneys general and the governors and all these people, they were put there by George Soros with one goal in mind, and that is to, basically destroy the democratic process and turn them into little enclaves of socialism, because that's what George Soros wanted. And that's what his money went to go and spend. Whenever there was an Antifa riot or whenever people were punching Trump supporters in the face, odds are the buses they got there on were paid in some part by George Soros or through some George Soros company. And George Soros was just given the Presidential Medal of Freedom, you may remember, by Joe Biden. He couldn't be there, so his son Alex, the next George Soros, got the medal on his behalf. But that's it, man. George Soros, the king of dark money, was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Joe Biden, and now he's calling out dark money in politics. I don't know if he thinks we're not paying attention, but we're paying attention.
We need to get dark money. That's that hidden funding behind too many campaigns contributions. We need to get it out of our politics. We need to enact an 18-year time limit, term limit, time and term.
Time and term. We need a time limit, a term limit, term and time. Term. Stop. Termy time. We need a term limit for, let me just continue that one.
For the strongest ethics and the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court.
Okay, I don't understand what he said there. So I'm going to back that up a little bit so you can hear it again, because he's a little mush-mouthy.
Time limit. Term limit, time and term for the strongest ethics and the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court. We need to ban members of Congress from trading stock while they're in the Congress.
Okay, so I think what he said was strongest ethical reforms.
Term for the strongest ethics and the strongest ethics reforms for.
Yeah, strongest ethics reforms. I think that means strongest ethical reforms for the Supreme Court. He wants term limits, time limits, and the strongest ethical reforms for the Supreme Court. Why? Because they sided with conservative values. They sided with the Constitution. They upheld the Constitution, and they didn't just blindly hand the Democrats win after win after win so that they could slowly but surely legislate from the bench. That's all bad, and so Joe Biden wants term limits for Supreme Court justices. Notice he didn't say anything about term limits for Congress. Notice he didn't say anything about term limits for the Senate, a body that he, gosh, I mean, how many terms did he spend in the Senate? It's 74, I think he went there, so 6, 7, like 5. He spent like 30 years in the Senate. Joe Biden doesn't want term limits for senators. Why? Because then all his friends would be out of a job. Joe Biden doesn't want term limits for Congress people. Why? Because Nancy Pelosi's she's got to continue to make billions of dollars somehow. And how is Nancy Pelosi's husband going to trade stocks illegally if she doesn't have access to all that insider information in the House of Representatives? Sure, I guess Hakeem Jeffries could text her. Probably don't want to text. You don't want to leave a money trail, but he could call, that kind of thing. But Joe Biden, he doesn't think we need any term limits in Congress or the Senate, but we need term limits for our Supreme Court justices, which, fun fact, were the only positions in the Constitution specifically named to lifetime appointments. The only position. President, there's no term limits in the Constitution. Senate, Congress, there's no term limits in the Constitution. The only position where our founding fathers thought it was important enough to impose an actual limit or specify that these are lifetime appointments were for the Supreme Court. And the reason that Supreme Court appointments are so important that they're lifetime is that they cannot be influenced by, well, the same dark money that influences congressmen and senators. If you were a Supreme Court justice and you were term limited, then you knew coming into it, whatever, you could be influenced by any and all of these same dark money factions. But because you're there forever, you're going to decide what's constitutional and what's not constitutional based only on the Constitution, or at least you should be. I know that there's some that don't. And that's why you run into problems like John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, because they're not being influenced by anybody except their own personal values and what they believe to be their interpretation of the United States Constitution. Now, as far as the stock trading goes,
Supreme Court, we need to ban members of Congress from trading stock while they're in the Congress. We need to amend the Constitution to make clear that no president is immune from crimes that he or she commits while in office.
Now, I think he would think differently about that if and when Pam Bondi starts investigating him and potentially other members of his family for what would you call it? Some kind of crime against the United States of America. Anyway, it was kind of a weird, dark, disturbing speech, but I think we're all glad that when it ended, because it signified not only the end of the speech, but also the end of, well, Joe Biden's presidency. We have some breaking news, by the way. We have some breaking news. We're going to get to that here in just a minute. First, though, I do want to talk to you about investing. If you're not in the Congress, if you're not in the Congress, if you're not privy to the same information that all these Congress people are, the ones that get rich while they're in Congress, the ones like Nancy Pelosi and John Rutherford from Florida's 5th District and a handful of others who've seen their net worth explode. Just explode. They get to Congress and all of a sudden, man, they become stock trading geniuses. It's really weird how that goes hand in hand. If you're not like that, but you do want to protect your wealth and you want to protect your financial future, might I recommend Colonial Metals Group, proud sponsor of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. You can get your free gold guide right now by going to freegoldguide.com/K, K-A-Y-E. freegoldguide.com/K. I put a link conveniently in the description of this video if you're watching online. If you're listening to the podcast, just go to freegoldguide.com/K and make your savings bulletproof. Make your savings bulletproof. Gold and silver, precious metals, these are inflation proof ways to invest your money and to protect your assets. Inside the free gold guide, you're going to learn how to protect and grow your retirement savings. Gold IRAs are a thing. They're a strong defense against de-dollarization. They're a strong defense against inflation. They optimize your assets. There's tax-free and penalty-free ways to safeguard your retirement now and also protect your financial future with an IRS loophole. And Paul Stone, who's a good friend of ours and has been on the show repeatedly, and we're going to have on again. Paul Stone is the CEO of Colonial Metals Group. He's a great guy. He's an intelligent guy, and he wants to help you, and that's why he's giving you this free gold guide. So if you're interested, claim your free 2025 gold guide. Go to freegoldguide.com/KAYE. All right, breaking news. This is exciting. President Donald Trump has just made an announcement. It's my honor to announce Jon Voight, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone to become special ambassadors to a great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California. Donald Trump is appointing ambassadors to Hollywood. They will serve as special envoys to me for the purpose of bringing Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years, to foreign countries, back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. These three very talented people will be my eyes and ears and I will get done what they suggest. It will again be like the United States of America itself, the golden age of Hollywood. Mel Gibson, Sylvester Stallone, Jon Voight are special envoys to Hollywood. How exciting. How exciting. Look, he's going to make Hollywood great again. I don't know why James Woods didn't make the list. I would have thrown James Woods. James Woods, I'm sure will be part of that as well. But that is really exciting. So look, Donald Trump is looking to make every aspect of your life great again. He doesn't want you afraid to go to the movies because you're going to be indoctrinated with some kind of woke crap. He doesn't want you to have to read some kind of online review of whether or not the new Disney film or the new animated film is going to try to groom your children into one lifestyle or another. He doesn't want any of that. He wants you to go to the movies and enjoy yourself. He wants you to go to the movies and see stories about great Americans doing great things. He wants you to go to the movies and walk away going, wow, I really enjoyed that. He wants to bring back entertainment to Hollywood and get rid of all of the DEI and all the other stuff and all of the anti-Americanism and the anti-American sentiment, because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. And it's really exciting to me to see that there's now a special envoy in charge of that. One more thing I wanted to mention real quick is about the House Freedom Caucus. The House Freedom Caucus released their 218 reconciliation proposal. And this has been, the House Freedom Caucus is I guess you would say these uber conservative, they call it the far right of the far right. But the House Freedom Caucus, they released this and they made some concessions and they realized that we've got to move forward and we've got things to do and Donald Trump needs some power to get some stuff done, but also we can't spend ourselves into oblivion. And so they released this yesterday. The House Freedom Caucus is prepared to quickly deliver the America First agenda led by President Trump. We've put forward and shared with colleagues across the Republican conference a good faith proposal outlined below as phase 1 in a 2-step reconciliation strategy. We would quickly fund border security, modernize the U.S. military, cut spending by reversing some of the worst Biden policies, right-size federal agencies and programs, and increase the debt ceiling for 2 years, while legitimately bending the spending curve down for the first time in decades. Our proposal is a Republican plan that we believe can reach 218 votes. That would also allow us to keep the ball on the Republican side of the negotiating field for defense and non-defense appropriations while delivering wins and ultimately uniting the conference. We stand ready to consider any proposal and to work with colleagues on their specific issues. So here's what they got. The big thing, and the thing that Donald Trump asked for, is the debt ceiling increase. Donald Trump really wanted the debt ceiling gone, but a debt ceiling increase is, I guess, the next best thing. A 2-year increase in the debt limit, $4 trillion, with commitment from congressional leadership on dollar-for-dollar savings over 10 years across both reconciliation bills and appropriation bills. So what they want is, if you're going to spend, we'll increase the debt ceiling. We'll let you spend more, but there's got to be a dollar-for-dollar cut. And with the DOGE implemented and with Elon and Vivek, although Vivek, I hear, may be interested in being a senator from Ohio, with all of that going on, that's possible. That's a possibility. And by, I guess, realizing we need to spend more in the outset, but we can also cut down spending while we're doing it, the Freedom Caucus, the House Freedom Caucus, at least seems to be open to a debt ceiling increase if it is justified with dollar for dollar savings or cuts. And that's something I think that most Republicans and definitely Donald Trump would hopefully be open for. National security funding, $200 to $300 billion over 4 years. That's for border security, $100 billion. 4 years of funding for the border wall, Border Patrol, and ICE to carry out removal and repatriation of Biden's illegal aliens. Repatriation, by the way, is a nice way of saying deportation. We're going to deport you. I'm sorry, we're going to repatriate you to your own country. Defense, $100 to $200 billion. 4 years of funding for defense modernization to ensure we beat China, with commitment to limit annual appropriations and empower DOGE while decreasing Democrats' leverage in the appropriations process. So they're all about spending money on the border and defense. Biden reversals as pay-fors. At least $361 to $541 billion over 10 years. They want to repeal the EV mandate, which would save $111 billion. They want to repeal the IRS funding, which would save $30 to $40 billion. They want to divert the funding for Biden's army of IRS agents to Border Patrol and ICE. I'm all for that. Repeal the student loan bailout. Stand with working class Americans hit by inflation by repealing Biden's unfair student loan bailout policies. That's $100 to $270 billion. Work requirements for Medicaid and SNAP. Right-sizing fees on illegals, tax remittances, and benefits for illegals. Tens of billions of dollars saved. Open federal lands and waters for energy and resources. Enact Midnight Rules Relief Act. Enable Congress to roll back disastrous late-stage Biden policies to the extent under reconciliation. So the Freedom Caucus has come forward with their plan that they believe or that they hope will unite the Congress and get everybody everything they want. So that's positive, and that looks like it could be potentially a day one administrative decision for the Congress after Donald Trump takes office next week. Speaking of which, don't forget, if you would like your official Donald Trump portrait t-shirts and hoodies and other merchandise and memorabilia, you can get them now at markkshop.com. This is it. This is the official portrait, folks. This is the one that they released last night. Donald Trump in all his second administration glory, emblazoned on your chest in a variety of fashion colors, including burgundy and the very popular military olive drab, which is right there. Is drab the right word for it? I don't know if drab's the right word for it. We also have mugs. If you want Donald Trump's mug on a mug, look at that. You can drink your coffee and look at the most powerful man in the world, the best president of our lifetime and probably anyone's lifetime, right there on your two-tone coffee mug. Very, very, very exciting. All of these items and more are available at markkshop.com, markkshop.com. Don't forget, if you want 15% off, coupon code is Trump World. The coupon code is Trump World. That will get you 15% off of your hoodie, 15% off of your portrait tee, 15% off of your travel mug, your official inauguration tote. By the way, the travel mug, I should point out, also has the Mark K Saves the Republic logo on it. So on one side, you get Donald Trump. On the other side, you get me. I mean, what could be better? What could be better? Trump on one side, me on the other side? Oh my gosh. I want one. In fact, I should probably get one. It's my own store. I should probably support myself. And I'm going to use coupon code TrumpWorld for 15% off. If you're listening to the podcast, go to Mark K Shop, MarkKayeshop.com, and get yours today. If you're watching online, you can use the link in the description of this video to go there and purchase whatever merch. Get ready for Trump's inauguration, because Trump's inauguration is getting ready for you. We, of course, will be broadcasting live not live during the actual inauguration. I'll be sitting in the cold, freezing my you-know-what off, because it's supposed to be the coldest. We heard this today. It's going to be the coldest inauguration since Ronald Reagan's, and Ronald Reagan's was so cold that they moved it inside. I already told my wife we're not going inside. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at frigid temperatures, but it's going to be a cold day in Washington, but a bright, warm, sunny day across the country, because it is going to be the beginning of the new golden age. Thank you so much for listening today. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Rumble, subscribe to the podcast, for crying out loud. Set those notifications. Let whatever platform you're watching know you want to watch more of this stuff. You want this information every day. You want to be informed. You want to be entertained. You want to be inspired. You want to know what needs to be done. You want to know what you can do. You want to know who we need to fight, because you want, like I want, to save the Republic. MarkKshop.com. .com. The hoodie's very warm. I'm wearing, this is the Mark A. These hoodies, by the way, are very comfortable. It's the premium hoodie. It's very, I cut I don't like the tassels hanging out, so I just cut them off, but they're very, very comfortable.